Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to talk about Justice Hunters. I want to get some discourse going on this. It's pretty interesting. I'm probably expecting some reveals maybe next week, maybe even at the end of this week. We'll see. Maybe the first archetype revealed. I expect it sooner than later, I guess. This product's coming March 22nd for the OCG, which means we're about 7-ish weeks away from that in the OCG. So I think they're going to start getting into that. But I gave you my initial reaction to when they revealed the artwork and a sentence of information for each archetype, but that's a reaction. So I've had a little bit more time to kind of look at this, get a couple more details that I want to talk about for these three archetypes, and that's what we're gonna do today. So let's get started here. Let's start off with the first archetype. We have to look at Dragon Tail. This is the one monster that got its artwork revealed. Dragon Tail Altharion. We'll see. First thing, I'm very curious. I doubt this name will translate to the TCG. Dragon Tales already being like a IP in American children's show from a long time ago. I don't know if they'll keep that name. I bet they would change it, but who knows? I don't know what the current status of that name is, if they can use it or not, but we'll see. Anyway, as far as what this archetype is supposed to be, the basic little simple description we got for this one is that it is a fusion-based dragon archetype. That's it. Fusion dragons. That's kind of all we have to work on, and then we have this guy, which we assume is going to be one of their, boss fusion monsters. Which brings up the question, like, what can we connect with fusion dragons, right? I'm sure there's a bunch of more cards. I'm not going to go all the way on every single option that is interesting, but some of the bigger ones that I think make sense, especially when you look at some of these three archetypes specifically, is like you can almost tie them in to like a more recent archetype, like a very recent archetype that either got support or is brand new and actually can kind of like could have some synergy there. Konami loves to do this all the time. They make an archetype that's actually just okay, and then we get another archetype very soon, and the synergy is amazing, and that those decks combine to take off into one better deck, or at least give more options, right? We've seen Pure Ryziel, now we've seen Ryziel Fiendsmith, other variants, Ryziel Mitsurugi, right? There's been new variants popping up here and there. So when you look at Fusion Dragons, what comes to mind first? Well, Branded Fusion is one of them. Now this card's at 1, and this is why I probably don't think this is it, and it's a little older. But if Branded Fusion was still at 3, and this new archetype Dragon Tail was kind of had some somewhat generic dragon monsters to take advantage of, I could easily see Branded Fusion being like a cool little engine in the deck to take advantage of. Now we'll see if they have any like generic dragon transitioning effects where, yes, this new archetype is dragon fusion based, but like, are there other effects in the archetype that allow it to connect to just dragon good stuff, Dragon Link, or Dragon Maid? That's the next archetype. This is the one I actually lean more towards. It's newer, it's fresher. This archetype's already seeing a little bit of success in the OCG, but I think there are some clear issues with this archetype. When I've already been theory crafting for this archetype, you can play a lot of normal summons in the deck. You can play some extenders, but even those extenders are just okay. They're in a lot of cases, they're the kind of extender where they're quite good extenders if you open them with a normal summon, but they're not good extenders if they're like dead if you open without, and in vice versa. If you open the normal summon without any extender, you pass after one hand trap, right? So you have to kind of find the in between. I'm wondering if this archetype could potentially lend Dragon Maid a way of playing through interaction like that, because that's really what the deck has. It has some consistency. It just doesn't have consistency in playing through interaction, and that's kind of what I have my eyes peeled for. So very curious to see if that one's here. And since this literally came out in the OCG in December, 3 months later, little over 3 months later, we could be looking at another wave to basically help bolster Dragon Maid even further. We'll have to wait and see, though. And then, of course, like for the big dragon stuff, I thought Hieratic Seal, obviously, you have to mention this. One of the craziest just type supporting Link monsters out there, other than I Sold. This one's one of the best. Dragon Shrine is another one. Just, you can play 4 copies of Foolish Pearl. If you want to play Dragon's Ravine, you can play 8 potentially. So if this deck does have good graveyard synergy, and Dragon Maid does too, so that's something to keep in mind. There are some really good tools there that we could take advantage of potentially as well, but we'll keep an eye on it. Second archetype, we have to look at the Yummy archetype. So this is their main monster revealed. This is Cupsith Star Yummy Way. All we have for this archetype, as far as its description, is that it is a light beast synchro archetype. Very, very interesting stuff for light beast synchro. Um, there's one giant blaring, flashing light in my face on this one. And I feel like this one's pretty simple. I feel like this one's probably Ancient Fairy Dragon, right? They get their new support. They have ways of searching and having synergy with just light fiends, plants, and beasts. No, not fiends. Sorry, light beast. Sorry, I'm so used to Fiendsmith. Light beast, fairy, and plant. Um, and so this whole archetype being not only light beast, but light beast and synchro based really could leave us in a really cool position where these archetypes can kind of combine together. Because the one thing about the ancient fairy dragon archetype with the new support is it's got some nice starter cards, right? It's got a nice spell that's a starter. They have a new normal summon that's a starter. So they do some cheeky stuff, but it is not nearly fleshed out enough. But if this archetype kind of comes in and kind of helps carry the load, we could very easily be looking at these archetypes combining into one legit threat as a cool synchro deck. So one thing I'm keeping my eyes peeled for this archetype is if it is going to work with the ancient fairy dragon stuff, probably needs its own field spell. That's like good, obviously. That way you can potentially go through the field spell consistently and make ancient fairy dragon so that way you can connect to other field spells, including the ancient fairy dragon field spell itself, and have that connective tissue between the two archetypes. And then add some oomph to the deck. The deck really ends on like the counter trap, or not the counter trap. They're in archetype trap and like something else, like maybe a synchro end word piece as well, but it's not like out of this world crazy. So I'd like to see some extra tools there as well, some bonus utility. But it is cool. Still excited to see where we end up there. It's also important to mention we did get the V Jump promo. The most recent one is light beast support. If you control any level 4 or lower light beast, plant, or fairy monsters, summons from the hand. Super easy. And then if it's used a synchro material monster, the monster who used it, gains 500 defense. And while it's in defense, it cannot be targeted. So that actually could be some nice utility there. Maybe an extender that comes up in the deck when we kind of get rolling with the new stuff. That's the main stuff. There's not a ton of like crazy great, like generic beast stuff. There's stuff like Obedience Schooled. If this archetype's going to work with the ancient fairy dragon stuff, that card is off the table. It's possible if this deck's just good enough on its own and it's low level beast kind of based, we maybe could see something like that get kind of played. I tend to think that just Melfi was just so specifically designed to work with that card. But it's not off the table that the card could come up. Other than that, I don't know, Tri Brigade stuff, but even Tri Brigade, I'm like, that deck's been that engine's been power crept for years now. I just don't expect it to come through and be strong enough to work with this archetype. So if you think of any other cool beast stuff, let me know in the comment section down below. And into the last archetype, of course, we have K9. This is the one card we had revealed. This is K9 number 17, Ripper. This archetype, really all they said on this is that it is like a XYZ based archetype that dispenses justice, basically. Like it's a kind of like a police force. Um, doesn't give us much. Based on this card, I think it's somewhat fair to assume at least this card should be Beast Warrior type. So we don't know if the whole archetype is going to be Beast Warrior type, but that does put Tenki on the table. Absolutely, that puts Tenki on the table. Um, and obviously that's a phenomenal, a consistency card if the archetype really does like getting access to Beast Warriors. As far as the archetype you have to compare it to, it's got to be Raziel. Just is what it is. I guess Goblin Bikers could also kind of be thrown in there. This could be maybe even be a rank 3 base deck, and then it's just a whole nother sweet engine that maybe power creeps some of the other, we'll call them lackluster engines that that the Goblin Biker deck has to play. Just something that's potentially there, but I think Raziel maybe has more leg there. This deck does hard lock you into 4s, so the deck would have to be rank 4 based for that. Maybe a little bit tired at this point. It just feels like recently we've gotten Shark support very rank 4 based. Raziel obviously taking over the game over the last couple months, very rank 4 based. It would feel a little bit kind of boring if this was ranked 4 based, so I kind of hope it isn't. but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, one thing I always wish for when it comes to Exceed based Exceed based decks, Konami, please make them all the same rank. Don't get awkward on it. Don't make it a deck where it's like half of the cards are rank are level 3, half the cards are level 6, and like sometimes you make 3s, sometimes you make 6s. If it's not also synchro based like Virtual World, it just doesn't work. So if it's fully Exceed based, make them all the same level and make it an interesting level. Change it up. Another card to consider though is also seventh Tachyon, locks you into Exceeds. But if this deck has a counterpart, if its main monsters that you want to be searching has good counterpart searchability off of the type and attribute and rank that work with this card, then obviously it's a huge leg up, especially because seventh Ascension is also potentially a card here. So you could be looking at potentially 6 Rotas, obviously quite good. Don't forget about the armor, the full armor package, uh, the armored exceed package, whatever you want to call it. If the deck is rank 3 or rank 4 based, obviously this package is pretty cool. I like it a lot because index like Goblin Bikers, index like Sharks, when you make your main first rank 4 or rank 3 or whatever, and it does get hand trapped because they usually are the type of cards that really warrant a hand trap, you can still get value through a hand trap on some usually 1 card lines, which is really cool. So have to play some bricks, but we'll see. It's definitely another package to at least keep in mind as you go forward. And the last card I'll throw out there is Zeus. This is a card that's kind of been forgotten a little bit. We just haven't really had many Exceed based decks that have really like come to fruition lately. Obviously, Ryzeal's there, but Ryzeal locks you into 4, so the deck doesn't even play Zeus usually. So, I just think this is a card that is still insane, gets very much forgotten about just because we haven't really had any top level decks that really facilitate this card in a couple of formats. And so I could see maybe this being the first Exceed deck that maybe comes through and gives Zeus, a second wind, if you want to call it that. So that'd be cool. But of course, this one has the least amount of information on it, whereas Yummy is at least like light beast synchro, which really, really tends to hint towards the ancient fairy stuff, and the dragon tail archetype is dragon fusion, which to me kind of seems like it's hinting at dragon maids potentially. K9 just says it's an Exceed deck. That's basically it. So we have to wait and see what level, what rank it's going to be based on, what the cards actually do, what type and attribute their monsters are, see if some of these cards are searchable and work with some of these other engines we're talking about here. But until we see that, we're just going to have to wait on that. So there you go. Just want to go a little bit more in depth. Like I said, the first time I made my reaction to these cards being revealed, or at least the artworks and names and everything being revealed, it was off the cuff. I didn't have any time to really think a little bit more in depth. But now that I have, these are my more opinionated thoughts. I think Yummy's still probably my leader in the clubhouse. I will say though, I do like Exceed based decks. I like Ryzeal. It's just expensive and the best deck in the game right now, and I like to play Rogue. So if it becomes Rogue, I might pick it up, but we'll see. So I don't know, that Ripper K9 as overall has kind of grown on me. I'm not a huge like waifu deck enjoyer, but if it's an Exceed deck and it's kind of like control or mid range based, I could easily find myself falling in love with it. And I guess for what it's worth, I kind of poo poo Dragon Tail out the gate. I'm a little bit higher on it now because if it does come to fruition that it actually does have really good synergy with Dragon Maid and they kind of combine to make a better deck than either are separate, I might find myself really enjoying Dragon Tail as well. So still excited to see what that archetype does, more so than I was initially, which is cool. But of course, Yummy's still probably my leader in the clubhouse as far as just based off of design. And until we actually see how the archetypes work, I like the idea. So there we go. I'm out of here for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. If news continues to be slow, we'll probably do more discussion videos like this. I do have a deck profile coming, maybe 2 even. We'll see. Post Supreme Darkness. So I'll bring that to you guys sooner than later. But thank you so much for sticking with me here. Subscribe to the channel for more stuff from me down the line, especially news, some deck profiles, discussion videos like this one, stuff like that all the time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Wise. But I'm out of here today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.